Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about how I don't regret my abortion and how I almost let religion ruin my life. So let's begin. Since I was 8 years old, I knew I never wanted to have kids. But at the age of 25, I found out I was pregnant by a guy I was seeing at the time. We both knew we didn't want the child, but our religious upbringing was weighing more than our own desires. We were both Catholic, and ever since I can remember, I was raised to believe that having an abortion was a sin, a crime, and that I had no right or say over my own body. That if I ever got pregnant, even if it was the result of rape, I would have to give birth. I always knew I never wanted to bring a child into this world. But I also knew that if I ended up pregnant for whatever reason, I would have to have it whether I liked it or not, because I was not about to go against God's will and end up in hell for doing so. This pregnancy was obviously not planned or desired, so when I found out I was pregnant, I knew my life was over. I remember feeling so violated. I didn't want this fetus using my body, but I was programmed to believe that even a fetus had rights over my body and not me. I was devastated because I knew all that awaited me was misery and pain. Out of all the horrible experiences I had had in my life, this was by far the worst one. And the next 2 months were complete torture. When people say religion is benign and it hurts no one, they are fucking lying. Because the outrageous amount of fear, guilt, and shame they poison you with is not easy to let go of. And many people never do. I told my best friend that I was pregnant and that I was planning on having it, and she almost slapped me. She told me that I was crazy, that I would regret it, that I didn't have to do this, that it would be the greatest mistake of my life, and that I should get an abortion. That idea was so out of my realm of possibilities that I rejected it completely. The answer was no. I was not going to get an abortion. Ever. Fortunately, she wouldn't take no for an answer. Almost every day for the next few weeks, we would talk for hours, and she would tell me that I was not a bad person for getting an abortion, that I had the right to do it, and that I didn't owe anybody any explanations, that it was my body and therefore my choice, that there was nothing to be afraid of because it was a very safe procedure, that everything was going to be okay, and that she would help me and be there with me through the whole process. There was another friend who also helped me see things clearly, and who knew that I was going to ruin my life if I continued with this pregnancy, and they both were going to make sure I did no such thing. They cared about me too much to let my ridiculous religious beliefs destroy my life and the lives of others. During this time, I felt like a war was going on inside of me. It was as if I was being split in half. My desire to not have this child was very strong, but my indoctrination was even stronger. I was so upset, so confused, so distraught, perhaps because deep down I wanted to have the courage to rule my own life. But my commitment to my religion and God was too strong to shake off, because I knew there would be consequences. Negative consequences, like burning in hell, upsetting my family, and perhaps even getting excommunicated. And I was too terrified to go against my religious beliefs. This was the moment I began to question the supposed goodness and wisdom of this God, to wonder why he would want to force women to have kids regardless of the circumstances, and without even considering the woman's opinion at all, and why he thought it was a good idea to put a child in the hands of shitty parents. Because to me, it's not just about whether children are going to be a blessing to you, but if you are going to be a blessing to them. I was getting very angry because the things my friends were telling me made sense. Because I realized I had been lied to for so many years, and it upset me to see the harm this indoctrination was having in my life and the lives of so many others. So I started to change my mind. I started thinking, why was I raised to believe that I had to give up my bodily rights just for being a woman? Why was I supposed to let others treat my uterus as their own private property and be okay with letting them make decisions over my body and my life? Why was I expected to live my life according to other people's beliefs and not my own? Why is it that the ones that have zero responsibility for a fetus think they have absolute rights over it? Why was giving birth an obligation and not a choice? Why, as a woman, it is evil if I choose to rule my own body, but it is not evil if others want to rule it even against my will? As the weeks went by, the idea of a loving and just God began to fade. I was starting to see the sadistic nature of this being and this religion, and I was very hurt and disappointed. I felt like my whole world was collapsing, and my Catholicism was collapsing with it. And I finally saw just how sick and disturbing it was for a God or anyone else to want to rule someone else's body. After many sleepless nights, after weeks of crying and feeling like shit, physically and emotionally, for being pregnant, and feeling like garbage for even considering not having this child, and debating on whether I should do this or not, I finally decided to get an abortion. This was a very important day in my life, because that was the day I chose women and women's rights over my old, archaic, misogynistic, sick, and twisted religious beliefs. It was also the last day I called myself a Catholic, because I was now in favor of abortion, and I couldn't have both. And I wanted nothing to do with this God and this immoral religion that is so invested in oppressing women and treating them as incubators. And that was also the last day I felt any guilt, shame, or remorse, because I finally understood that I owned my body, and no person and no God would ever be able to convince me otherwise. I want to say that when I told the father I was getting an abortion, he was totally and completely against it, and he wanted me to have that child. But I did it anyways. I realized that he didn't have the right to force me to give birth against my will, because the one that was going to risk her life was me and not him. My friends helped me realize that not even he had rights over my body or anything in it. So we made the appointment, and my other friend took me to the clinic, even though I was still devastated for making this choice. And even though it was the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life, I knew without a shadow of a doubt it was the right thing to do. Everyone at the clinic was very nice. They were very kind and professional. The procedure went well. I had general anesthesia, so I didn't see anything. When I woke up, I was given some painkillers. And even though I had physical pain afterwards, the emotional pain and anguish were gone, because the religious guilt was gone. The person that walked into the clinic was not the same person that walked out of it. I felt empowered. I felt free. I felt relieved. I felt extremely grateful. I felt that for the first time I owned myself, and it was a great feeling. Religion had finally lost its grip on me. This abortion broke the heavy chains of religion in my life, and it loosened the religious blinders that had been placed on me without my consent. I realized that religion has done a fine job convincing women to be proud of their oppression and wants them to try to force women that are free to be proud slaves just like them. I say all this because I'm sure there are women out there that are probably going through something similar. Women that know they don't want children, but that feel so much guilt and shame because their religion has made them believe they are a horrible person for controlling their own fucking reproductive system, which is complete nonsense. I'm not saying that every woman should leave their religion if they get an abortion, but in my case, I could not continue giving my money and being a part of an institution that was going to constantly condemn me and try to make me feel guilty for exercising my reproductive rights. I could not continue worshiping a God that expected me to submit to his immoral, misogynistic rules and that would punish me if I refused. I would not be able to sit there and listen to the priests criticize, judge, and disrespect women who get abortions. I was not about to continue taking their abuse and stupidity because I had had enough. And the only decent and self-respecting thing to do was to leave the abuser. So I left. This was the beginning of my deconversion, and I will be forever grateful. If you're a person that still feels guilt and shame for getting an abortion 30 years later, maybe it's because you are still going to a church where they are actively trying to make you feel like shit and shaming you for it every opportunity they get. There are women that say they regret getting an abortion and that's why they're against it. But you regretting it does not give you the right to impose your beliefs on others. It would be as ridiculous as saying that because I regret getting divorced, then I will force others to stay married. But that is exactly what many people try to do when it comes to abortion. There is not a day that goes by that I am not grateful to my friends for opening my eyes to the truth, for not letting me make what would have been the greatest mistake of my life, for being supportive and loving when I most needed it. I am also grateful to all the women and men that fought for my reproductive rights. I am grateful to the doctors, the nurses, and all the wonderful people that are willing to risk their own lives in order to make these procedures possible. I will be forever indebted to all of them. I am grateful for this pregnancy because it put me in the shoes of the women that I was taught by religion to judge so harshly, to criticize and condemn. I am grateful I was now the one being judged and the one that was being treated like an object, like someone else's property, because it gave me the humility I needed in order to extend my empathy and compassion to other women. It helped me see that the people that follow their religious beliefs without question will very likely cause great harm to others. Because religion poisons your mind and your heart. It inflates your ego and makes you believe you have God-given authority to control others. I find it absurd that some of the people that say that God gave us free will are the same people that go around imposing their religious beliefs on others by force, violating the rights and the supposed free will that their God gave us. I want to clarify that during this time, I was angry at God, but I obviously don't feel this way anymore because I no longer believe that a God exists. But I am still angry at religion because this immoral institution does exist and is still causing great harm to so many people. In closing, I just want to say that in 21 years, I have never regretted my abortion, not for 1 minute. It is one of the best decisions I've ever made. And not a single day goes by that I am not grateful that I had the courage to do it. It is a lie that every woman regrets her abortion or that she is lying if she says that she doesn't. I am here to tell you that I don't regret it. Never have, never will. I am grateful that I was able to get a safe abortion. And I can only dream that someday every little girl or woman in the world that needs one will be able to do the same. That is it for today. Thank you for listening. Bye.